You crouch at the mouth of a cave. In your palm sits a lump of soft red stone. You grind it against a flat rock until it crumbles into a fine, blood-colored powder, then work in a little animal fat until the powder becomes a smooth paste. You drag 2 fingers through it and pull them across your cheekbones, down your forearms, over the small shoulders of the child beside you. This is not decoration. For a long stretch of human history, this red paste may have been something closer to survival gear. The color has a name. It is called ochre. Ochre is simply earth or rock loaded with iron, the same iron that turns metal rusty and blood red, ground into a powder that stains everything it touches. And your ancestors were, in a quiet way, obsessed with it. Across tens of thousands of years and nearly every land humans reached, they dug it, carried it, traded it, buried their dead in it, and pressed it onto cave walls and onto their own skin. Why would people who owned almost nothing spend so much effort on a red rock? For most of the last 100 years, the answer felt settled. Ochre was art. Ochre was ritual. Ochre was one of the first proofs that your ancestors had minds like yours, minds that reached for meaning, beauty, and belonging long before they built anything permanent. It was the deep past waving at you, saying that the people back there already cared about how they looked and what things meant. Then a group of scientists asked a stranger question. What if some of that red paint was also doing a quieter, more practical job? What if, in at least one desperate chapter, it was helping to keep people alive? Begin with how deep the habit runs. On the southern coast of South Africa, there is a small cave called Blombos. Inside it, the archaeologist Christopher Henshelwood and his team uncovered something that stops you in your tracks: a workshop for making ochre paint. And not a recent one. This kit is about 100,000 years old. Picture what they found. 2 abalone shells, the broad pearly shells of a sea snail, used as little bowls to hold a red, liquid ochre mixture. Grindstones for crushing the raw rock. Hammerstones for breaking it. A flake of stone still coated in dried pigment. Someone, 1,000 centuries ago, gathered iron-rich stone, ground it, blended it with fat and bone marrow, and stored the result in a shell for later. That is a recipe. That is planning. Researchers describe it as a benchmark in how the human mind became modern, proof that people could source ingredients, combine them, and save the product for a future need. And the same cave later gave up engraved pieces of ochre, crisscrossed with deliberate patterns, some of the oldest known art in the world. But here is the honest part. The rock cannot tell you what was in the mind of the person who ground it. When you find red powder beside an ancient hearth, you find the material, not the motive. So over the years, researchers have listed the things ochre may have been for. A glue mixed into the sticky resin used to fasten a sharp stone point onto a wooden handle. A tanning agent rubbed into animal hides to turn them into soft leather that lasts. An insect repellent smeared across the skin. A ritual pigment painted on the living and on the dead. Every one of these is plausible. The trouble is that a single red smear can serve many purposes at once, and the evidence rarely lets you choose just one. Now step forward to a very specific window in time, and to the study that reframes everything. In 2025, researchers at the University of Michigan, led by Agnit Mukhopadhyay alongside the anthropologist Raven Garve, looked closely at an event called the Laschamps excursion. To understand it, you first have to understand something invisible that protects you every single day. Around the Earth, there is a magnetic field, a vast, unseen shield that deflects much of the harmful radiation streaming from the sun and from deep space. You cannot feel it. You would only notice it if it failed. About 41,000 years ago, it nearly did. During the Laschamps excursion, the Earth's magnetic poles wandered far from where they belong, and the strength of the shield dropped to as little as 1/10 of what you rely on now. The night sky would have turned strange. Auroras, the glowing curtains of light you associate with the frozen far north, may have shimmered over places that never see them, down toward the middle of the world. And with the shield weakened, more ultraviolet light reached the ground. Ultraviolet, or UV, is the invisible part of sunlight that reddens and burns skin, damages the eyes, and injures the body's cells over time. For thousands of years, the world simply became a more dangerous place to stand in. The Michigan team modeled where the shield thinned the most. Then they laid that map over the places where early humans were living and leaving their traces. The two lined up. The regions bathed in the most radiation matched, closely, the regions where your species was active around that time. Is that a coincidence or a clue? Look at what those humans were doing in the same window. Their use of ochre increased. They left behind more sewing tools, bone needles and awls and scrapers, the kit for cutting and stitching fitted clothing rather than loose hides thrown over the shoulder. And they spent more time inside caves. Fitted clothes shield skin from the sun, caves are shade. And ochre, when it is rubbed onto skin, has been shown in laboratory tests to block a measurable amount of ultraviolet light. It behaves, in part, like sunscreen. Some communities in the world have used it for exactly that reason, to guard their skin against a punishing sun. So the researchers proposed a careful, striking idea. The rise in red paint during this dangerous chapter may have been, in part, the world's first sunscreen. Not only a symbol, also a shield. It is important to sit with how uncertain this is. The link is correlational, which means these things happened at the same time, but that one has not been proven to cause the other. Garvey herself is clear about that limit. No one can climb inside the mind of a person who lived 40,000 years ago and confirm why they reached for the red. What can be said is that the timing is suggestive and that a behavior long filed under art may have carried a hidden, practical edge. There is one more layer that makes the story land. This is roughly the same window in which the Neanderthals faded and vanished, around 40,000 years ago. The Neanderthals were your closest human cousins, a separate kind of human who had thrived across Europe for hundreds of thousands of years, thick-set and clever, and built for cold. They do not seem to have adopted the same full kit of protections, the tailored clothing, the frequent ochre, perhaps the same reliance on shelter. Could sun protection have been one small advantage among many that tipped your ancestors toward survival while another human line slipped away? No one can say with certainty, but it is a haunting thing to hold in your mind that a smear of paint might sit somewhere inside that story. Let the moment become real, reconstruct a single day. You wake 41,000 years ago in the shadow of a rock shelter. The light outside is wrong somehow, thin and pale, and the night before, the sky wore colors it had no business wearing. The sun climbs, and it bites harder than it used to. Before anyone steps out of the shade, an older woman crouches over a flat stone and grinds a lump of ochre into red dust, working it with fat until it gleams. She reaches out and draws it across your face, your neck, the backs of your hands, then does the same for the smallest child, who squirms and complains. You pull on a fitted hide, sewn tight with a bone needle. In the worst heat of the day, you slip back into the cave and wait it out. None of you has a word for radiation. None of you has a theory of the magnetic field. You simply do what the people before you did, and it works, and so it continues, one painted face at a time. Here is the twist you may not have seen coming. The thing you might dismiss as war paint or vanity may have been in disguise a health technology, a piece of survival science wearing the costume of a symbol. And perhaps the deeper lesson is that your ancestors did not split the world the way you do. To them, the red that protected the skin, the red that marked who belonged to whom, and the red that honored the dead need not have been three separate things. Meaning and medicine could live in the same handful of dust. Now feel how little the gesture has changed. Walk into any pharmacy today. On the shelf sits a white bottle marked with 3 letters, SPF, a number that rates how well the stuff inside blocks the sun. You unscrew the cap. You squeeze the lotion into your palm. You drag your fingers through it and pull it across your cheekbones, down your forearms, over the small shoulders of a child before a long day at the beach. You are answering the same threat your ancestor answered, an invisible light from the sky that quietly harms the body with the same ancient instinct. Reach for a paste, spread it on the skin, different jar, different color, the same 40,000-year-old reflex running through your hands. You crouch at a bathroom mirror. In your palm sits a small white bottle. You drag your fingers through it and pull them across your cheekbones, down your forearms. This is not decoration. It never entirely was.